Hey there, coaches. I'm Rich Prado, owner of Play In School and host of Travel Ball Talk, where I talk to travel ball coaches from the best organizations in the country in order to learn tips, tricks, and tactics that other coaches can implement within their own organizations. Additionally, we will discuss the current and future state of travel baseball. Today's guest is dialing in from the West Coast, where he established himself as one of the pioneers of this thing we now call travel ball. Rob Bruno founded NorCal 27 years ago. It could be easy for a guy in his position to get comfortable. Despite his nearly 3 decades running NorCal, he continues to want to learn and adjust to the changing times. And he continues to put out some of the best teams in the country every year. You'll hear him describe a shirt he's had made that he calls By the Numbers. Let's put it this way. NorCal can brag about alums in the MLB and first-round draft picks the way other clubs brag about college placement. Bruno is a natural storyteller and a name dropper in the way that friends mention friends, not in the way that name droppers do. When you've been doing this as long as he's managed to get to know some recognizable names. Before I hit record on this call, we hadn't been on the line for more than 60 seconds. And something I said reminded him of the time he was at some event and 3 kids were palling around at the complex. He said the kids' names were Crawford, Harper, and Trout. He was quick to let me know that Trout never played for him, although I'm pretty sure I've heard of those other 2 kids. You can tell he's not caught up in the bright lights. He is, however, genuinely caught up in the relationships. If you have suggestions for a coach I should have on the show, please shoot me a note through email or DM. And without further ado, my conversation with Rob Bruno. Okay, here we go. Another show. We've got the wonderful Rob Bruno from NorCal on the call today. For those of you who don't know NorCal, you're probably not around travel baseball enough. For those of you who do know NorCal baseball, you know they've been at or near the top of the food chain for a very long time. So, Rob, I appreciate you coming on the line today.
Rich, thank you very much for having me.
So, as I was telling you before, I'm an East Coaster. You're over there in Northern California. And you've been at this thing a long time, but you and I have been what I describe as pen pals, and we've been kind of text buddies and Twitter buddies now for a long time. But we've never met face to face, and we've never done any work together. So this is going to be almost all brand new, fresh information for me, and hopefully the listeners on the other end get to know you a little bit better, and maybe they can pick up some tips and tricks and tactics to take away and implement with their own organizations. But the first thing, I think let's start at the beginning with where and when did NorCal come to be?
Well, it really started kind of in the summer of '91. Pondering, I've always coached at that point 2 sports, baseball and football. Built more like a football guy, but baseball is definitely my passion. And I did, coach some high school as well as some like Pop Warner stuff, and I was going to coach that next fall of '91. But a lot of the guys that I coached, we just started a pony colt program in the San Ramon Valley area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, and a lot of guys I coached said, "Hey, you know what? Not going to play freshman football. Would love to keep playing baseball. Had a good experience, so it was an all-star team." And I said, "Listen, let's take a look at this thing." I started calling around Greater Bay Area and Northern California, and invariably they would say, we don't have a fall team, but this guy over here, and one of the first guys was Keith Ivicevich. Keith plays, and he's our best guy, and he's not going to play football. I think he'd love to. So we started accumulating like chess pieces, one guy by one guy by one guy, and by the end of it, we had a pretty good squad that fall. So that kind of started it. And believe it or not, there just wasn't very much fall baseball. And for that matter, there wasn't very much summer baseball for independent groups. I mean, we had 3 solid groups in the Greater Bay Area and Northern California that spring and summer, and we'd play each other all the time. And there were a lot of future guys that played good college ball, good minor league, and some major leaguers. So that's kind of where we started.
Now, over here on the East Coast in the 90s, we're talking about American Legion during the summer, and I'm assuming you guys had the same, or American Legion / Colt baseball. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct. Pony, Colt, American Legion, Babe Ruth, Connie Mack. Connie Mack wasn't as prevalent then. He was just coming into play. We wanted to do something different. We wanted to give a forum for players that were good players who wanted to play against good players and not be limited.
Now, how did you do the fall stuff if there weren't who were you playing? If there weren't any other leagues or other teams like you guys back in the early 90s?
We really had to get a little bit creative. I remember the first time it was the first workout. I'll never forget when the first workout was, because you know how we have this horrible fire right now.
Yeah,
it's really been devastating. The smoke's stayed in the Bay Area for almost 10 days, and I feel horrible for the town of Paradise and up in Chico and everything else, and it's been a catastrophe. But that being said, the big Oakland Hills fire, they actually had a TV movie, the big Oakland firestorm. It was that day. That was the first time we ever did it. About 3 or 4 weeks later, we went up to Yuba City, which is actually pretty close to Chico. We played Bob Teal. I'll never forget this. And Yuba Sutter Rebels. He says, "Hi, I'm Bob Teal. Welcome up here. We're 20-0 in the fall." And I'm thinking, he's played 20 games already, and this is like late October. And I'm thinking, oh boy, we're in trouble here. So anyway, after the 2 games, Bob was 20-2. And he wasn't real happy about it. And I remember he threw a kid named Bo Mitchell against us. We were in extra innings, first game. Bo Mitchell had to throw 165 pitches.
Oh boy!
It was unbelievable. There were no smart pitch counts, so to speak. And so I said, "Well, Bob, that's great. This is our first time. I'm passing out uniforms." And literally, we were just passing out uniforms, and it kind of spawned from there. And I'll never forget, the first guy I actually recruited was a guy named Will Mosley. And Will's a big guy in this area, and he's written a couple books. Just quite a character, quite a coach, just a great guy. He's got something very unique. He's played at 3 Division I schools that have played in 4 different conferences. I don't think that'll ever be done again. But Will Mosley and Ryan Sanchez were my first 2 guys I ever recruited outside my program. So we had to be creative. We had to go out and find people, and that's kind of what we did.
So that's back in 1991 with one team and a bunch of guys who basically weren't playing football. So
that's correct.
Bridge the gap. Today, obviously, we know there's a lot of specialization. We know travel baseball has become a big industry. To say the least.
Oh, it's a huge industry, and it's a.
How did you bridge the gap from that?
How did
you bridge your gap from 91 with barely finding teams to play beyond Bob's team to now? In that kind of in between time in the early 2000s. What were you doing back then? Was it AAU baseball?
AAU was really big.
Yeah.
The first year we went out, it was I took kids from Pony All-Stars pretty much, and then recruited a few other kids that played on a CABA team. And, I was involved with the CABA group. And the main reason why I got into that was Gary Baldwin. Gary, for me, is the godfather of youth baseball. And I don't even like to say travel baseball. I think the word travel ball for me is a negative connotation. It defines it as a little league on wheels, so to speak.
Yeah.
We're more of a development program, and so is Gary. And I've got the utmost respect for Gary Baldwin, who's ran East Cobb. And to be honest with you, Gary's the reason why Perfect Game is Perfect Game, because he brought out all the things that started off at East Cobb, and then of course went to Lake Point, and now that's to put. But Gary's the godfather of all this stuff. And on the West Coast, you would have Mike Spears. Mike ran ABD and unfortunately passed away 3 or 4 years ago. And we did a lot of things with Mike, and I really attribute the baseball on the West Coast being so good for a lot of reasons, as far as the the travel ball industry, so to speak, to Mike and his brother Mitch and his brother and his son Joe are doing a great job still on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. So getting back to that whole thing, it started off with AAU, and the first year we go back to Charlotte, North Carolina, and we have a 15-year-old team, and we proceed to win the thing, undefeated. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this is going to be easy. This is not so hard. And so the next year, little bit tougher, but we started picking up some guys. We lost in the finals to the Houston Heat actually the next 2 years at the 16-year-old level, and they're quite a club. And it's just kind of ironic that I just read that they're going to be part of our Program 15 group that I'm part of.
Yeah, we should talk about that in a little bit.
We definitely will talk about that, and the reason why I'm doing that is Jeremy Booth and his foresight and what he wants to get accomplished. And it's very like-minded to what I want to get accomplished. But getting back to that, we picked up some guy named Pat Burrell. And Patrick was like about 6'4", 225 pounds at the time. And I had a great coach. I'm going to tell a quick story about that. And I had a great coach with me. Mike was a guy who coached at the JC level, coached with Augie Garrido, Mike Luna, kind of a legend in our area. Coach Augie Garrido at Cal State Fullerton first time around, and quite a coach. But Mike loved to play small ball. He was a master at the infield play. You talked about making them play fast catch while base running, and he was the smartest guy I've ever met. Between he and Jerry Weinstein and a couple other people, I've learned so much from the game, and we always keep learning. But he was really having a tough time. Patrick was with men on second base, no outs. He was insisting on the guys hitting the ball hard to the right side, and I said, Patrick, don't worry about that. If you hit the ball off the wall, I think Coach Luna is going to be just fine. So next time he does exactly that, and Coach Luna was just fine, and Patrick thought, this is a pretty fun game here.
Yeah.
So
I don't think Pat Burrell's built for small ball.
Patrick was not built for small ball, and I learned that you can't be a cookie cutter. You've got to let guys do what they do. I had a young guy, G.J. Hill, this year, Glenn Allen Hill Jr. He ran a 6.21 this summer.
Wow.
And the best thing I did was he and Brock Jones, who's another kid that's pretty amazing, 6'3" runner, going to play football and baseball at Stanford. We tried something this year, and I thought it was pretty neat. Whenever they got on base, I had another kid 6'5", another kid 6'6", fastest group I've ever had. We would have, how in football, you're on a run pass option kind of. Well, we did a slide step / lift option. Anytime a guy lifted and he had a pretty good lift, they're gone. So they're expecting our guys to go every single time. Our guys were going to go every pitch until they weren't. If they sidestepped, we cut it off, turned it into a fake break. If they lifted, we were gone. I think we had about a 95% stealing percentage. It was unbelievable. Something we worked on.
That's incredible. So I don't want to get too far into this thing. For those of you guys who are listening, and you're starting to hear kind of like name after name after name get dropped, I'll tell you before we hit the record button, when Rob and I were just saying hello and chit chatting, he's already diving into stories and dropping names like Trout, Crawford, and Harper. And of course, Trout is a New Jersey guy. I don't believe he ever played for you. He was a Tri-State Arsenal fella.
Tri-State Arsenal,
but which is a great organization. But yes. Crawford did play for you guys, and you say you've known Harper since he was a little guy, although he was never that little. But
no, he was not.
So that's a segue to one of the things that's kind of interesting when you've been at this for 27 years. And you happen to be in California, which is a talent-rich spot. There's some numbers listed over on your website. They may not be completely up to date, but can you tell the listeners at home roughly how many college guys, how many draft picks, how many MLB guys, how many MLB, et cetera, et cetera? Walk us through some of those numbers because they add up so fast.
So I'm going to name drop again. Why not?
Yep.
Stu Peterson. Stu's a great friend. His son happens to be Jock. And Stu saw this shirt one day from somebody that had list of players that played in programs and different things. And he said, you've got to do this by the numbers thing. So I give full credit to Stu.
Okay.
And so we started with this. And the cool thing is that every 6 months or so, we need to change the numbers.
Yeah.
A guy is going to get, we had 28 or 29 and counting. And again, our program is not nearly as big as other programs as far as numbers, as far as how many teams.
Mm-hmm.
For years and years, we only had one team per grade. And we do things by grade, not age. Yep. We feel like that's who you've got to compete with, and it's important. And it gives us a little bit of a disadvantage once in a while, but we don't really care. It's about development. It's about getting better. That being said, by the numbers, shirt, it's only guys that have played with us for a full year. I think that's a distinct notation that everybody needs to know, because some guys, if you look at their shirt, they'll take credit for you.
Yeah,
and that bothers me.
Yeah, the kid who pitched 3 innings at one event all of a sudden is listed as an alumni. So you're not counting it that way. You're saying if you played for us for 1 year, we're going to count you. So
a full season. Most of the guys are 3 years. So numbers wise on the bottom, we start with over 500 guys at Division I level. But if you talk about Division II, 4-year schools and things, it's about 550 to 580, somewhere around there. About 300 guys drafted at this point. 51 guys in the MLB. 20 first-rounders, 10 guys that have played in the All-Star game, and 2 MVPs. And both those guys are 5'8" in cleats on cement. Jimmy Rollins, who was the smartest kid I've ever Jimmy's obviously not a kid anymore, but he was a kid when I was around, and he was around. But smartest young man I've ever met in my life. And Dustin Pedroia, who probably had the biggest heart and a boulder on his shoulder, not a chip on his shoulder, but a boulder. Those guys were the absolute winners. And of course, we've had guys that are 6'5", 6 and 7. Dontrell Willis, CC Sabathia, those kind of guys. So it's pretty amazing about baseball. You can be 5'7", 5'8", and be an MVP. You don't have to be 6'6", 6'7", but it certainly didn't hurt Dontrell or Patrick or any of those kids.
This is a really interesting thing where you guys have been around. You've had NorCal for almost 3 decades now.
Yeah.
It's a talent-rich environment. But it's easy to say, well, he's just got all these, these dudes, these studs, these, future college, pro, whatever. But if you weren't good at what you were doing, if you weren't providing a top-notch service, these parents could have gone somewhere else. But they kept coming to you. What is it that you think separated what you do and how you do it versus the team down the street from you? Because there's in your area, there's got to be tons of teams in your area, right?
Well, there are a bunch that have sprung up, and there are a bunch that also told everybody, "Hey, we can do the same thing that they do."
Exactly.
And the reality is that they can't,
exactly,
because they don't work as hard. I need to make sure that since 1995, Tony Crivello has been running this program with me, and he co-runs this thing. And honestly, he is absolutely the glue.
Yeah.
He's a left brain guy. I'm a right brain guy. Tony is brilliant at what he does, and he's our director for our NorCal World Series, and the best pitching guy I've been around. He's turned down Division I pitching jobs, but he's just a great baseball guy, and a better person than I'll ever be. But Tony has deserved a lot of the credit for a lot of the continuity. He's great at the website. He's great at coaching. My strengths are projection. My strengths are to make sure people understand what our program is about, how we're going to be doing things. My strength is making sure that we do a great job on taking care of our kids. We know each and every one of our kids in and out. We have to. That's why we don't want to get too big. It's important for us to know. It's important for us to move the guys along. I would tell you this, that we do a great job on placing our guys, but we will never have somebody come into our program just because we do a good job with that. We don't want you if all you want is exposure. If you want to be part of a pretty special family and legacy and you want to get better and develop, we'll give you the same opportunities we gave the Dontrells, the Brandon Moros, the Tyson and Joe Ross. What's interesting also, we've had 2 sets of brothers that have played in the big leagues, and not too many. And we've got a third set of one played in the big leagues, another played in the minors.
That's
actually, we've got a 4th set of both guys played in the minors. and both those guys are 95 plus, the Lyman brothers.
Whew.
So the Goodell brothers, Eric and Tyler, also play for us. I don't know if too many programs that have had two sets of brothers play in the big leagues.
No. Again, man, your geography has been a very good thing for you. You lucked out to be in the area where all these really good players have been. However, they weren't just studs to begin with. I know I follow you very closely online, and kind of I really enjoy watching the conversations on Twitter. You know me. I'm not a guy that is all launch angle or all bunt or no small ball or all small ball, and I pick up some of the same from you as well. I don't think you said it earlier. It's not cookie cutter. There's no one way to do it. But let's get into this idea of development versus showcase, and you've touched on it a little bit. What are sort of your thought process behind those two words?
Okay, so here's my thought. There are three major items that kind of come into play. The first one is exposure, and I just don't care. I don't care about exposure. Our guys get exposed. We can play on a Tuesday, and I could have 7 schools there, 4 from the Pac-12, because our program has talent, and they know it, and they're going to come watch us. So what I want I love developing shirts. The shirts by the numbers I got from Stu, and we developed that. And I want to develop a shirt with 3 guys, 3 teammates on the rail in a dugout looking over the field, with the middle guy saying, "I'm playing for my teammate on my left and my teammate on my right." Nobody in the stands. Yeah. One of the biggest challenges these days is kids, players. They're looking up in the stands. They think they've got to perform for college coaches, pro scouts, all the above, and they've got to perform for their teammates. Mm-hmm. So in our program, the best compliment you could ever give is he's a great teammate. Mm-hmm. 2 things we work on. 2 things: development, and we've got great people. We've got great people who work really hard with our guys, and we take a lot of pride in that. When we bring in some outside guys and reinforce what they do, I've been very fortunate to know Jerry Weinstein, I think, is the smartest man in baseball, and I don't think it's close. He's a mentor to.
I think a lot of people will agree with you on that one.
Yeah, he's a better person because he's a giver. He and his wife are just unbelievable people, and I'm very fortunate to say that he's my friend. But guys like Jerry Weinstein, I'm very close to Alan Jaeger. Alan's been a very good friend for 25 years, and my joke with Alan is, I knew Alan before he was Alan. Yeah, with the J bands and the Jaeger throwing program. Alan made such an impact on us. One of the reasons why he is so proactive with the major league teams and everything else come draft time with the pitchers is because of one of our kids, Chris Ruler. Chris was a 2002 third pick of the draft. Pretty special guy, 397 to 98, 81 mile an hour, 12-6 breaking ball. Johnny Bench said he had better stuff than Tom Seaver. That'll give you a little bit of a reference. Okay. Yeah, not bad, right? Casimir went behind him, and then what's the name of the guy from the Diamondbacks, the right-hander from Florida?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
He's an all-star, making hundreds of millions. Anyway, both those guys went behind him, and Chris went to the Reds, and they had an archaic throwing program. Unfortunately, got hurt, had 3 shoulder surgeries, just blew his shoulder up because of their weight training and then throwing after downhill. And Alan worked with Chris a lot before then, really helped develop him on the mental side as well as the physical side. And Alan became very proactive at that point, making sure, and he went on a crusade, and I'm all for what he does. I think Alan's one of the best guys. And Steve Springer is another guy. I think he's the best mental hitting guy in the game. Yeah. Just a tremendous guy. And by the way, maybe the funniest guy I know.
People love him.
But, I espouse a lot of the things that Steve teaches. And then we've got great teachers. I mean, Tony does a fantastic job, and A lot of guys in our program. Orsino Hill, his son Derek was a first-round guy for the Detroit Tigers. Probably the best defensive player in professional baseball. If he just stays healthy, he'll be in the big leagues soon. So we've got a bunch of Dan Bugarin, big part of our program. We've had a lot of other guys that have been part of our program. Gary Hanks was a 4-year head coach. Tremendous. So we've been very fortunate, and we just don't reinvent the wheel. We keep doing all the good things. Now, that being said, there's a lot of new things. And if I want to become an extinct dinosaur, I will quit learning. But if I would be a fool if I did. You look at a guy like Jerry Weinstein, who's older than I am, who keeps learning to this day. And if he can do that, why in the world would I not? So launch angle, hey, you know what? We're calling that ball flight 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
It's you can call it whatever you want to call it, but it's ball flight.
Yeah.
And you know, all these things, you know, tunneling. You know, Alan Jaeger was talking about throwing from the same angle with the same effort with you know, same fastball intent, but with just another grip 20 to 25 years ago.
Sure.
Danny Koufax was tunneling way back. Ted Williams was displaying and talking about a bat plane being proper to set a good launch angle to set ball flight 30, 40 years ago. So none of this stuff is new. Now, what they're doing is they're bringing science into it, pretty much reiterating, yes, this is why it happens. Well, we already do that. This is nothing new.
Yeah.
But it is all good stuff. All the analytics, all the metrics. I'll tell you a group that's unbelievable is Diamond Kinetics. Sure. Those guys, they developed this smart ball. That has a chip in it that'll tell you, obviously, velocity, but it's going to also tell you spin rate. It's also going to tell you from where you started to where your release point was, how far down the hill you were, along with some other metrics. They're brilliant. You know, the blast motions and all those other ones too. Yep. So if we don't take advantage of those things, then we're knuckleheads. But I'm going to go even further. If you cannot extrapolate that information and be able to teach it simply to players from 12 to 18, then none of that stuff matters. None of it.
That's right. You know, and one of the things, I mean, going back several years ago, listening to some of the hitting gurus try and break this stuff down, and I'm sitting there going, if I were 12 years old, I'd be lost, because they're using terminology as if they were trying to do a PhD dissertation or something. So I think you put you nail it when you talk about the communication aspect of it. All that data and all the knowledge and the metrics is only as good as the way you communicate that to the player. And a player at 27 years old is very different than a player at 12 years old. Guys, there's a lot to unpack in there, but you said something early on in that talk where you talked about exposure. It's and I agree with you 100%. You can roll into a local high school park with no grass on the infield, and you can get college coaches there. You know, there's never been a better time in the history for exposure. It's easy. You know, call everybody's listening. They can call me. A parent or player can call me. I can give you a list of 100 places every weekend where you can go to get exposure. That's not hard. So why I'm emphasizing that is when I see a travel team whose number one bullet point is that they're going to get exposure for the player, it kind of makes me think, what else are they bringing to the table? Why is that the only thing they're bringing? Because that's easy. Everybody is doing that.
Yes.
So then you continued along your talk, and you're discussing all these things you're bringing to the table. So I'm glad you expanded on that. That's awesome. I want to take a short break from this conversation. For those of you who aren't familiar with Play in School, our main goal is to offer products and services that create value for travel ball organizations, their players, and their families. One way I've been able to do this is through the Prospect Planner. It's the only productivity planner designed specifically for student athletes. I know it works, and I know the impact it has is unbelievably positive. I know these things because I actually began implementing the same exact system for goal setting back in April. And it's been one of the best years I've ever had, both professionally and personally. Let's put it this way. My business is up and my weight is down. Isn't that what everybody wants? The planner will help your players identify, track, and accomplish their goals. I cannot stress how disproportionate the added value that you'll provide your players will be compared to the price of the planner. Full details of the planner can be found at playinschool.com/planner. But contact me directly to inquire about team pricing. Whew, man, you got some stories, don't you, Rob? I love it.
Well, I do. That's going to be, again, as I told you, I think I ran into 4 or 5 people in the span of 2 weeks that said to me, this is a late summer. You've got to write a book. You've got to write a book.
Okay.
And I'm going to write a book.
Let's get into it because you had mentioned that. Do you have a topic picked out? What do you think this book is going to be?
So I'm going to, I think it's going to be something that's going to be interesting. I am a big fan of greatness. I will tell you that, for instance, in my area, the greatest high school football program of all time is De La Salle High School in Concord.
Okay.
And Bob Laddiser is a guy actually who went to my school. He was about 4 or 5 years ahead of me, San Ramon Valley High School in Danville. And Bob, for me, is probably the best coach of any level of any sport of all time. He was more of a teacher than a coach. But their program, I've studied a great deal. I was fortunate enough to coach baseball and coach some of the kids that played football for him, like Patrick Balch, whose thesis was on winning, one of the top coaches in the state at Sarah High School for football. But he also played baseball, and that's another great story. He played baseball at Texas for quite a legend. So he learned a lot about that. But anyway, getting back to that and getting back to Bob Laddiser and De La Salle, there was a book called When a Game Stands Tall.
Okay.
And the book was, every other chapter had to do with inspiration, motivation, education. And then every other chapter was stories about their program. They had 100 and something game win streak.
Okay.
That was incredible. But they would beat teams that were literally 50 pounds heavier than them because they out-executed them. They did things very simply, but they did everything great. I think there's a great poster that says, don't fear the guys that do 100 things one time, but one thing 100 times. Mm-hmm. Those are the people that that you would kind of fear. And so my thought is that if I can do something like a book like that, talk about educational, motivational, inspirational, every other chapter.
Yep.
And then talk about the stories of our program. And again, I'm a boring person, and I don't care about me. Nobody cares about me, but they will care about our experiences that Tony and I have gone through with NorCal baseball, how things have changed, where it started, where it really flourished, and then looking at what's happening now, and honestly hoping that there's going to be a little bit of a change coming up, because it's just become an I, me entitled thing, honestly, much like AAU basketball became.
Yes.
And we need to get away from that. We need to get back to the roots.
How do we do that, Bob?
Oh, boy. One of the things is start to work with like-minded people. And that's why I'm in the Program 15 thing with Jeremy and other guys. My job, actually, I was self-appointed, and then I was just doing this anyway. And again, my job is a special assistant now. But my job is to make sure that we bring in some quality people. And part of that is I'm selfish. I want to play against good people that think like us. So we're bringing in some great people. The Orlando Scorpions are now part of the program, and I think they're fantastic people. And BPA, Jared Sandler, is one of my best friends in baseball. Jared does an unbelievable job in Southern California. developing his guys, exposing his guys, not for exposure per se, but doing a great job getting in front of the right people. He's just a tremendous person who really cares about the kids. So, developing those alliances throughout the country, and that's what I'm doing there. And
let me jump
part
in.
of the things that they do.
Jump in, Rob.
Sure.
For those listening at home, we kind of glossed over. If you're listening and wondering what exactly he's talking about, Program 15 is basically a partner organization. It's kind of the brainchild of a guy named Jeremy Booth, who is maybe the biggest hustling guy in baseball right now. He
works hard.
He works very hard. He has he started something called the Future Star Series and Program 15. So Program 15 is basically the partner organizations from across the country. And if you go, I just pulled up the website. I think
Sure.
you could go to futurestarseries.com, right, and find Program 15. And what you're going to see is some of the best organizations in the country have teamed up to be in this program together. And beyond that, the details for me get a little fuzzy. I'm not running it. You'd have to talk to Booth to get the nitty gritty on it. But it's some of the better organizations in the country, like NorCal, like US Elite, like who I just actually spoke with Mark Helsel earlier today about.
Well, Mark's one of my great friends, and he does an amazing job.
Yeah, he spoke very highly of you too. So, but other organizations in the Program 15 are the Scorpions, and down here in Virginia where I am are the Mid-Atlantic Orioles, and I believe the Blue Jays out of Canada are in there. So it's really good organization. So what you're trying to do is you're basically surrounding yourself with guys that you like, know, and trust, who are put in quality organizations on the field, so that you can compete against people who are like-minded. Sound close?
That's correct.
Okay.
And by the way, there are some other great ones out there. I love the 5-tool guys. They do a tremendous job, and I spoke to those guys also, and they
those are guys out of Texas, right? Out of Dallas.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Lynn does a great job. I know Coach Brewer out of New Mexico, out of Albuquerque, and Ryan. I'll tell you what, he is quite a guy. I'm gonna tell you a quick story about Brewer one time. We're in the USA baseball. Then it was the Junior Olympics, and I don't know why they can't call it that anymore. But politically correct stuff. That's what happens. So we're playing against them, and we played about an 11 inning game, 12 inning game. There's a guy that plays shortstop for them named Bregman, who's kind of a pretty good player at this point.
Okay.
Alex Bregman might be right with Jimmy Rollins for the smartest baseball player. I don't know. I've never met Alex before, besides just once or twice shaking his hand going through the line. But this is a little bit embarrassing for me, but I'm going to tell you the story anyway. So Brewer tells me years after this that we were just tattooing their guy and just lighting him up. And so he goes out there, and Bregman says, "Coach, I got it. I'm going to start calling pitches." Alex Bregman called pitches from inning 4 to 10 or 11 from shortstop. Flash him to the catcher, who flashed him to the pitcher. He called the game from shortstop.
Unreal.
I've never heard of such a thing. But if you watch that guy, his baseball IQ is absolutely off the charts. The guy is fearless. He loves big situations. And for that reason, I love guys like Alex Bregman. He's just off the charts. What a great story, though. A little embarrassing on my part, knowing the shortstop's calling pitches. But yeah, what a great guy.
So the Program 15 and everything that you guys have going on over there on that side.
Yep.
I don't think it even comes to fruition if there weren't opportunities for improvement within this within the world of travel ball. So what are some of the opportunities that you're looking for? What are some of the things that we can improve upon within the state of travel ball right now as you see it?
Part of the stuff is development. I don't think we spend enough time on the development. So let's talk about that. There are other groups that do a great job also with different things. I'm going to say the Prospect Wire and Matt Bomeisel does a great job, and he's got something that a scout cast that he measures all kinds of metrics and does a lot of filming with that kind of stuff. But as well as we've done a lot of things with those guys as well. But when you start getting things like that, and I think what matters is, okay, that's great. You're 88 from your throw into a net. Your exit velocity is 92. You're running a 6.95 or a 7.2, whatever it is. I love the fact that you've got some baselines to work with.
Yep.
Now that's great, because in reality, if you're a good athlete, that's certainly going to help you in baseball. So that's great. So what do you do to improve those things? And as a community, a baseball community, we have to do a better job of improving the physical part so that we're just bigger, stronger, better. I think there's a lot to be said for that. So, okay, you're 7.2 now. You want to get to 7.05 by summer. What are you going to need to do? And so we have to have resources to do that. And it starts individually, it starts locally. But as a community, I think we can do a better job developing. Now, from that, if we really want to get into this stuff, now we need to really work on the mental part. Because, you talk about approaches and everything else. And let's go back to the World Series. You've got approaches and non-approaches. I just read a great little thing, actually, that was on Baseball America. They talked about Boston. What they did, they had a longer runway, quote unquote runway, where they would. Did you see it? And where they made their decisions later. Now they might not have been able to put the perfect quote unquote launch angle friendly swing, or the what do we want to? You want to call it the drive line swing, whatever you want to call it, right? Because they're a big name right now, right?
Oh yeah.
So I like some of those guys. I don't like the head guy, to be honest with you, but I like some of those guys. They're good guys, and they care. Well, I just don't. I think
don't worry, he won't be listening.
Subject. That's all right. He's all he listens to is himself. But Jason and some of the guys that are involved with that guy, they're good people. So I'm all for that. But so you looked at one group like the Boston Red Sox. They did a better job on making sure that they read later and later into it, so that they made better decisions. They were not striking out as much. They're making better decisions with 2 outs than with 2 strikes. And they're putting the ball into play. Sometimes it was home runs because they're still putting a good swing on. Whereas the Dodgers were swinging out of their butts. They had no plan, including one of my favorite guys that I ever coached. They had no plan. They were just swinging. And somebody made a comment. It cracked me up on Twitter. They said, well, apropos that the Dodgers hit a home run to win that game, that 18-inning game. Well, I had to point out it took them 9 innings to score a stupid run. They could have done it within a couple if they had better approaches.
Yeah.
You don't need. This guy was talking about, oh yeah, but like he had a home run in the 18th. Well, he did nothing for 9 after that. So it's just ridiculous. We need to do a better job with that kind of thing. Houston Astros are my model for what's great with all this. The year before, they led the league in home runs and also led the league in least amount of strikeouts.
Yeah, I like that.
That's perfect. It's fantastic. That's what you need. So there's no excuse for striking out. Well, we'll look at this and we'll look at no. There's no excuse for striking out. When the strikeouts totals are more than hits, there's a problem in the game, and there will be a correction. When you have all these guys, by the way, all these shifts, that's not new. Everybody watched again, I'm older, but McCovey's shift, they had shifts. They've always had shifts. But if a guy can't hit the ball opposite field, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Muncy, by the way, hit that ball opposite field for a home run. You can hit balls opposite field for a home run. Look at Chris Apes for the A's. I think about 40% of his balls go to right center. Now he's a freak. That being said, he hits the ball where it's pitched a little bit. So there's no excuse for striking out. You can always say, well, they're that many better pitchers and they're doing this, doing that. Well, guess what? Some guys aren't striking out. So maybe they're just better hitters. And I think we need to go back to the drawing board and say, we need to hit the ball from gap to gap and have some kind of approach because, oh, by the way, these pitchers are really good, but it doesn't matter. So are the hitters.
Oh,
They need to adjust as well.
All right, so let me hand you the magic wand here for a second, and heading into next year, what would be one or two things you'd like to see implemented or changed in the travel ball world?
Oh boy, I think it starts with the lower groups.
Okay.
I don't understand why people need to travel when they're 11 years old.
Why
are we having 9-year-old national championships? I don't understand that. I think we need to do a better job on the foundation, on the floor, the bottom floor here, and do a better job in keeping great interest and teaching at the lower levels.
I'm with you 100%.
What's happened with that is we've developed an entitled group, and you almost have to keep educating to break that habit. And all these groups that are out there, I'm in the wrong industry. I should have been a tournament director, because those are the ones that make money. It's not people that run teams. Trust me. It's groups that are running tournaments, that are doing subscriptions. Let's talk about rankings.
Boy.
I think rankings are the devil for a lot of reasons. But we've got
But they get that $9.99 a month subscription from mom and dad, so they can see where juniors ranked.
That's what it's about, and this is the cottage industry that sickens me. We've got guys that are ranked that are unranked just because they've been seen or not seen, and it's a joke. I mean, we won this Perfect Game World Series this year for my 2019 team. We're the best team in the country, although we were ranked number 2, even though we beat the team that was number 1, and we won their best tournament. How does that happen? Well, we don't go to as many events. Simple as that. Well, and you're talking about other rankings. There's 2 rankings that matter, Rich. There's 2. The college program that signs you to a letter of intent,
100%,
and the pro team that drafts you.
Bingo. It's like you've been reading my diary, Rob, because that's exactly what I say all the time. It's the only ranking is that whiteboard on the college coach's wall. That's the only one that matters. I mean, when you start seeing kids who've never pitched in high school because due to injury, but they're ranked in the top 5 of the state, how do you justify that?
You can't justify it.
The kid's never pitched. Kid's never pitched.
Well,
but he's ranked.
And if you want to go even further, I think college programs are finally figuring out that they're taking guys too early. Number 1, committing them too early. Number 2, they're also figuring out that they're taking a snapshot at a showcase, watching a guy for 2 games. They need to watch a guy play for 5 or 6 regular games. I don't care how you play the showcase. I do care how you play and how you compete in a game. Yeah. And those are 2 totally different environments.
Well, I think a lot of that thing is going to self-correct. I think the pendulum swung way over in one direction, and I think it's swinging back the other way. I'll give you a story, one that I know. I won't name names or programs, but a kid I know, I'm familiar with, that's signed at a mid-major as a sophomore, and I never thought he was a D1 guy to begin with. Right.
Right.
I see.
But he committed as a sophomore.
He commits as a sophomore, and first of all, why mid-majors are committing guys as sophomores is beyond me, but they did. Now, that team, fast forward, that kid just completed his sophomore year in college at that mid-major. That team was one of the worst hitting teams for batting average in the entire country. That kid couldn't get in the lineup. When the kid that you gave money to as a sophomore can't make it in the lineup of the worst hitting team in the country, you've made a bad decision. And it's one thing if you have, bottomless pockets, and if you miss on one, or if you're an elite team and you miss on a kid, that's okay because you got another elite kid right behind you.
Right.
But a mid-major can't miss like that. You have a couple misses like
No.
that, and you throw away a lot of scholarship money. And so hopefully, not hopefully, I don't wish for anybody to get burned on bad decisions, but when you make a bad decision like that, hopefully you do learn from it and you say, maybe we don't take that kid sophomore year. Maybe we give him another 6 or 12 or 18 months to develop, and then we reassess. Because, my goodness, let me tell you, that particular program, that particular example, if they don't sign him, they're maybe better off. They give money to somebody who can contribute.
Well, it's not like 15-year-olds don't change till 18.
Shocking, right?
A couple things. I'll tell you what's amazing. I've got 4 kids that are, for me, starters at any conference across the country that have not been committed yet. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world are these guys looking at or not looking at? And I know darn well they're that good. We've set too many guys to that level. So it's pretty amazing stuff, and hopefully that will get rectified. But some of the guys that get picked early, that get committed early, and you see schools that'll overcommit and then drop these guys a month before letter of intent time, or drop their scholarship numbers.
I've seen it. I've seen it. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully the pendulum is swinging back the other direction. A lot of this stuff is definitely maybe a little just self-policing that won't require the NCAA to step in. Time will tell. Time will tell.
I've got a solution. If you want to commit a guy as a sophomore, it should be done officially.
100%.
The number should be put in there, and then they're allocated for that 40% or whatever it's going to be.
I'm with you.
And then they're going to follow through with these kids, because it's a one-way deal. Very few kids jump, but 90% more colleges will let loose a kid.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing: if you do commit as a sophomore, you better work 10 times harder now than you did before, because that just gives you the reason to work even harder, to be the best guy you can ever be, setting foot on campus or Arizona or Florida for rookie ball. You should be working even harder once there, because that, first of all, you've proven that you have some athletic ability.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been gifted. Second of all, you owe it to yourself and everybody else around you to be the best person you could ever be, on and off the field. So anybody that rests on their laurels, boy, that really hurts. I know a kid that did that, that's from our area, and lost a huge scholarship, and rallied, got a little bit better, and is now going to be somewhere else. But I mean, that's the biggest mistake guys can make. Once they commit, they stop working.
Let me
they
ask
have
you.
to keep competing.
You start when I handed you the magic wand. You started in an incredible position, talking about the foundation with the younger age groups, and I thought that was a phenomenal answer. So, but I actually don't know, how young does NorCal go? What's your youngest age group that you guys are putting a team on the field?
Well, we used to go down to 12. Right now, even 10. We usually have an 8th grade team.
Okay.
This fall, we don't. We might do it for guys this spring. Anything below freshman level is pure development. We don't care who you are. Show up and we'll teach you. In August, before their freshman year, we have our tryouts. In high school is really what we really care about as far as that part of it. 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade.
Has there been any thought about going way into the youth ages as far as just having that feeder program, or you're totally fine with what you got at the older ages?
Totally fine. We can manage it better, and I don't like parents of that age.
Okay, and tell me how many.
To be perfectly honest.
Tell me how many teams you are carrying these days at each grad level, or is it?
Well, two to three at the 3 levels, and it all freshman, sophomore, junior. It all depends if we have enough talent.
Yep.
And quality coaching to warrant it. We will not add a team to add a team.
Okay.
Tony and I, our little inside joke is we're a nonprofit organization. We prove it every year.
Yeah.
We don't have teams to have teams. They have to be quality kids that we feel like we can develop to get to the next level. Even the second group that we had this year with our 2019s, I believe we've had 8 to 10 guys sign letters of intent out of 20.
Wow.
That's pretty darn good. Dan Begarin, I give a lot of credit to. He just did a great job on the field, but off the field also making phone calls and things. He's really been a blessing for us, and he's done a great job. And but his kids were, really top notch also. And it's funny. A quick story. And this is a little bit of a riff with some high school stuff. And again, I get along with most high school coaches. I think most programs are great, but there's always a little bit of tension with some groups. So we had a young man who played at a school. It was a good school, no question. He was told after his sophomore year that he might not make the team next year, and he probably will never. He's definitely not going to be a Division I guy. And and the young man said, "Coach, with all due respect, you've never seen me play." He's a varsity coach has never even seen his JV team play. Didn't care. Well, lo and behold, he gets cut junior year. I told him he ought to transfer if he really wanted to play baseball. Again, I'm not for transferring. I'm not that guy. But if he wanted to keep playing high school baseball, he needed to, or else because he did not have a place to play. So he did, transferred, worked his tail off for the next 18 months. Last week he signed a letter of intent to an excellent Division I school. So it's one of those things where you never limit yourself and you never listen to people that don't have anything good to say.
No doubt. Now,
pretty good story.
Now, just despite NorCal being in your mind a nonprofit, you've been able to have baseball as your profession for the better part of your adult life.
Yes.
So you have the teams. I know you run at least a couple of your own events. Can you tell us kind of?
We have our own events. We've got our showcases.
Yep.
I help out with a mentoring program for high school athletes. Most of them are not in my program. I would tell you that I've never given a lesson in my life. If my guys want to get better and they need some help, I'll just go work with them. Tony does the same thing.
Okay.
Dan does the same thing. We just go work with them. We don't consider those lessons. They're part of our program. That's what we do. Yeah. Yeah, and some other baseball things. So that's how we.
And now Jeremy's keeping you a little bit busy too, isn't he?
He is, but that's I'm not. I don't really worry about the financial part of that. I'm doing that for selfish reasons. I want to play great teams and be part of something special. So that's why I do what I do there, and it's a great situation. I'll tell you what was a lot of fun. The international series, the 3-day weekend we had at Glendale this last August. I saw a kid that, he might be one of the best high school pitchers I've ever seen in my life. He just came in, and when you watch guys like this, he was like 97, 98. Help me out. He's the kid from Georgia, number 1 or 2 guy, Daniel Espino. So I watched this kid, and I'm thinking to myself, he's really good. And then I see him against great hitters. He played on the he's originally from I believe from Puerto Rico, so he played on the international team. And Espino's facing these guys that are great hitters and just making them look like nothing. I kind of define pitchers as if they can make guys that are good have uncomfortable swings.
Sure, yeah,
they're really good. They're really good. And Espino was amazing. So that whole thing was just incredible. Watching guys like Espino. I had a couple of guys do pretty darn well too. I think Glenn Allen Hill Jr. stole about 8 bags, and Aaron Roberts touched 95, and it was fun. We had a couple of guys touch 95 in Jupiter. We didn't go. We sent about 7 or 8 guys to different things. A couple of guys touched 95, and one of them, Will Bartlett, one of my best leaders of all time, 25 years. He might be the best leader I've ever had. He goes to IMG. The Florida Burn borrowed him, and I will tell you that Will Bartlett will make any team he's on better. And he'll be going to U of A. He'll be a professional baseball player, though.
Okay.
Down the line. But Will's an incredible leader. And so they went out to that event. We just don't take a team out there because we just don't have enough guys that want to really miss 4 or 5 days of school. That's the challenge. But if they want to go and they've got professional aspirations, we try and place them with some good people.
Yeah, you kind of open up a whole nother topic here with Jupiter, but it's the average team, because that's become a pro event, right? All those kids are committed.
Yeah.
So the
to a certain extent, yeah.
The reality is there's how many teams out there have 20 draft picks on the team. So to take a whole team down there, to basically show off a couple guys, that's a tough sell. So you end up seeing a lot of combo teams. Hey, we'll take 8 of these guys and
right.
and 10 of these guys, and there we go. And I'm seeing that more often than not, because there's no point in taking. Why are you going to take a team of mid-major, non-draft prospects down there? Because you're missing school. It's a big expense for the family.
Right.
They're already committed. Yeah, so I get it.
I would tell you this. I tell you what was great for me. For a couple times in a row now, that teams that were like-minded people had won that event. And a great example, my biggest challenge is I get guys that call me up and say, hey, we'll take care of his flight, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll pay for him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these guys aren't professional. I've got a problem with that. But anyway, the Florida Burn, which is a local team, and again, Will didn't have to travel anywhere. He goes to IMG in Florida.
Sure. So he's right there in
They
Bradenton.
played together for years. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They played together for years, this Burn team, and they won. And they beat some unbelievable teams.
Yeah, that's
the
Coach,
Dirtbags.
Coach Guthrie runs a pretty good program down there, doesn't he?
Not a bad player either, huh? But we played against the Burn, and they're just great. We played against them. A really interesting thing. We played against them years ago at a World Series thing out in Georgia, and we tied 0-0. We gave up 1 hit, they gave up 2, and that was the game. And unfortunately, 7 innings. And one of those things where, and I can't stand this. Well, you played 7 innings, so it's a tie.
Oh.
Well, baseball is meant to play extra innings. That's the game.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest reasons. That's one of the biggest turnoffs I have from these tournaments. That's the game is timeless, and gotta stop. But it's one of the best pitched games I've ever seen in my life. But just a quality group, really quality group of Florida Burn.
Well, we've been on the line a good maybe hour plus here, and I was thinking about maybe trying to wrap this thing up. I wanted to ask you a couple more questions, and then I'll let you get going.
Fire away.
The first revolves around a tweet I saw the other day, and then you and I exchanged a couple of DMs around the topic.
Sure.
I don't remember what the original tweet was about, but basically, and you've mentioned you're a fan of greatness and self-development, and I believe that you mentioned something that you're calling a 50-day challenge. Do you mind sharing? You don't have to go into great detail if you don't want, but share with us what this challenge entails, and maybe by the time this episode airs, the 50 days will be over, and we can.
Well, there you go.
This will be an accountability partner for you if you want it to be.
Well, there you go. Everybody has their vices and everything else. I'm a big food guy. Love food, so. And I've got a real challenge there. So it's like my joke with Las Vegas. I don't drink, smoke, gamble, or like crowds, but I love Vegas. They got great food, and they got great restaurants, and they've got great shows.
Yeah, I love that.
But so I call myself the straightest Mormon you'll ever get to meet, or the non-Mormon, straightest non-Mormon as far as I don't drink. I've never taken drugs, never smoked. But my vice is Ben & Jerry's New York Super Fudge Chunk.
Oh, boy.
Or Haagen-Dazs chocolate peanut butter, right? So I've got to really watch it, and I've always been a weightlifting guy. I was a power lifter for years and years, and so one of the things that I wanted to do was do a great job, and I thrive on like the ketogenic diet because that's kind of right up my alley. And
sure.
So I wanted to be perfect with that. I also this is the age of social media. And I've gotten, semi-addicted. I've got an addictive personality. Thank God it's not with drugs or drinking or something. But I love the Twitter and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I thrive on that stuff. I love news. I love politics.
Yeah.
I decided these 50 days, I've cut down to 2 hours of TV a day,
Yep.
and it's only sports, number one. I will not listen to news. I will not read about politics. So what I'm doing now is listening to podcasts, reading books, maintaining workouts 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day, perfect eating for 50 days. And all my reading is pretty much self-improvement, spiritual type things.
Love it. Love it.
So
what
I figured
we're
if
going
I
to do
can't,
is,
devote myself to 50 days.
yeah, we're going to check by the time this hits the airwaves, if it ever hits the airwaves, we'll check back in and see what kind of grade you give yourself. That's pretty good stuff. And I can't remember if I think I did mention when we were DMing back and forth. I recently deleted Twitter and Facebook from my phone, which has, wow. I mean, talk about just opening up some time, because, kind of like you describe, you just hop on there and there's some mindless scrolling. Unfortunately, I'm a businessman, and the world I deal with lives on Twitter, and so I need to be on there. So what I'm doing is I'm hopping on Twitter, mostly on the desktop, and obviously you can still log in through Safari, through the web, and get on there. Right. And I just changed some settings. So if somebody DMs me, I'm going to get an email, and then if it's something where I feel like I need to respond in the second, I'll do it. Otherwise the amount of mindless scrolling has gone way down. It's kind of scary. The real thing that made me look at it was the iPhone, with that last update, told you what your screen time was. And when I started looking at what my screen time was, I mean, it was an embarrassment to see how much time.
So do you think 8 hours is bad? Because I do. That's what happens to me.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And it's not everything in moderation, right? And I found my numbers to be way too high for comfort. Yeah. So that's why I deleted mine. That's pretty cool. Now I'm thinking back. I think you had tweeted something about a planner, and so hopefully you're tracking this stuff and you're writing it down.
Yes.
That
and also I have my planner also for scheduling events and things. And again, that's the difference between Tony Carvello and I. Tony's got a season planned already. Okay, I'm thinking to myself, will you please plan my season?
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. I don't, this is not for your benefit or things, but I'm going to buy your planner for my guys, and we're going to put our NorCal logo on there, and of course that'll be I am going to call you back in the next day, because I am going to buy planners for a little project for some mentoring stuff that I'm doing, but also for my teams.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we're going to have them. They're going to input that. I think it's crucial. Again, we're not in the baseball business. We're in the person development business. You're going to be a person a lot longer than a baseball player.
Absolutely.
And I don't know anybody. Do you know anybody that died in their cleats?
Oh, no.
Maybe besides, I know one, Don Zimmer.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Don Zimmer. That's it.
The thing, the planner, I don't need to tell the full story here, but for me, I started using a productivity planner April 1st, and within 90 days, I had a transformation, both personally and professionally. And I said to myself, I'm going to kind of implement these strategies for a very long time, and I don't do it 100% of the days where I'm not tracking my goals every day. That's not the way my schedule works, but it's probably, 5 out of 7 days or 6 out of 7 days. I'm tracking my goals daily, which will impact the week, which will impact the major goals I have in my life. And then all of a sudden one day I said, wait, this stuff has changed my life. I need to get this in the hands of these kids. And, so there's organizations, there's individuals who are getting it just for themselves, but there's coaches who are saying this is a neat way to have a big impact on kids. And not every kid's going to take to it. But the ones who do take to it, I think will see big upside, and it's not all about, the being the first round draft pick or being the Hall of Famer. It's about doing your homework every day, right? It's
Right.
those little things that that level of detail is what can really separate one kid from the next. Listen, last question.
Yes.
I'm gonna hand you back the mic here for a second, and then I'm gonna let you
Sure.
go. Talking coaches here, travel ball coaches. If there's a guy, young guy, old guy, whatever kind of guy, woman, girl, who wants to get into travel ball, what kind of advice are you giving that coach?
Do it for the right reasons. Do it for you want to give back and make a contribution to your area, to your community. Do it for the right reasons. Be there. Tony and I, this is our way of giving back. We love doing this. And again, we do not make money doing NorCal baseball. We love what we do. We do other things in life to make ends meet. But do it for the right reasons and understand it's for the players. It's not for us. I think that's the biggest thing.
I love it. Love it. Rob,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. This has been a great conversation. You've got a lot of story. You've been doing this 27 years. You obviously come built in with stories. It was fun to hear. I hopefully the folks on the other end of this thing that listen picked up one little nugget that they can take home. But I appreciate your time.
It's part of my book is going to be called Tales of a Baseball Dinosaur.
Hey, before we let you go,
there you go.
Before we let you go, you are a Twitter guy, even though you say you're not scrolling on Twitter as much. You're still a Twitter guy. Do you know you have your handle off the top of your head?
At NorCal BBGM.
Okay, and that's at NorCal BBGM. And
yes.
I was on the website earlier. It looks like NorCalBaseball.org.
That's correct. .org
is how you're going to find everything about NorCal baseball. And
yes,
Coach, I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. And it went by quickly.
It always does.
That's right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Talk soon.
Okay.
Bruno is quite the storyteller. You can tell he really loves what he does. I get the feeling he's never met a stranger. I connected with him on Twitter, and I suggest that you track him down there too if you ever have any questions for him. Again, my name's Rich Prado. I'm the founder of Play in School. My goal is to continue to create products and services that add value to you, the travel ball coaches, your players, and their parents. Visit playinschool.com if you're curious to find out more about our team-focused college recruiting videos, our online course on college recruiting, or our brand new productivity planner designed specifically for prospects. You'll also find an endless depository of free videos and resources for prospects and their families in the blog area of that site. Until next time, thank you for listening to Travel Ball Talk.